Natty or bust, huh? Oh, that's not good confetti. Oh, well, these are snap judgments in Ohio State. They are the national championships. Jeremy Birmingham is better at that than I am. I am Austin Ward. The Buckeyes are the best team in college football again. First national championship in 10 years. You expand the college football playoff, the Buckeyes are going to go out and win it. The 12-team playoff belongs to them. An epic run capped by a 34-23 win over Notre Dame in this building on Monday night, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Pretty good, Burn.
Yeah, I mean, wow. I mean, what a run and what a remarkable way to finish the season in a game that felt a lot like a lot of the season did, where it's like Ohio State seemed like it could have won this game by a whole lot. They still won it comfortably. They win it by 11. They've won every game in the playoff by double digits. They are the 8th seed somehow. Everyone, we go back to August, we go back to April, we go back to last January. The expectation for this team never changed. The only thing that changed was that they didn't always live up to it. And what you got in the last month is what the beauty of this new expanded playoff is and what it will mean for teams moving forward. And obviously for Ohio State, it meant a chance at redemption for this season, a chance at redemption for Ryan Day, who now Ohio State beat 6 of the top 8 teams in the country this year. I mean, it's a remarkable run, and I don't think that we're really going to be able to put it into a historical context enough tonight. But if you look at what Ryan Day, now the 3rd active head coach in college football to have a national championship win under his belt, he's in his 6th year as the head coach at Ohio State. He's coached in 2 national championship games, 4 playoffs. He does not get nearly the respect he deserves nationally for what his record has been. I hope that if one thing's come out of this tonight, it's that any of the Ryan Day can't win big game garbage goes away forever.
I mean, look at the top 10 teams in the country and the top 10 that are going to be in the final AP poll. And then look at that murderer's row of teams that Ohio State beat this season. They did lose to their rival.
Yeah, and that matters. And we get it.
And that's important.
Doesn't matter tonight.
This is the national champion. And I think it makes me, again, this is probably, as you said, a conversation for another day. It makes me wonder why college football spent so many years fighting against the expanded playoff and how many national champions were actually not deserving of being there. Because guess what? There's no question that beating Tennessee, Oregon, Texas, and Notre Dame in a row makes you a worthy national champion, and maybe the most worthy national champion, because this is probably how it should have been all along. That's an argument, a debate for another day. It doesn't matter. The 2024 national champions are Ohio State. They were the most talented team all along. They encountered adversity, whether that was self-inflicted or injury-wise or anything else that you want to throw out there. It was not the smoothest journey to the finish line, but they got exactly where they always intended to go. And they looked like the version that we always expected them to be when it mattered most.
Yeah, and that starts with Will Howard. I mean, again, I don't know that tonight doesn't really need to be a requiem for a season or a post-mortem of the entire year, but you have to look at this in a vacuum and say Ryan Day made a pretty bold choice a year ago when he said, Will Howard is my quarterback, because I don't think there was anyone nationally, the 2 coaches that wanted Will Howard were Ryan Day and Lincoln Riley, right? And so at the time, I remember talking about saying, hey, if these are the guys that want this quarterback, then there's something special there. Mm-hmm. And you saw the difference in the first quarter tonight, first quarter and a half. Will Howard was perfect. Riley Leonard couldn't complete a pass. And when he had open receivers, was overthrowing. He got a lot better in the second half. Kudos to Notre Dame for putting the game on Riley Leonard's arm, and he delivered. But Will Howard and this choice that Ryan Day made to bring him in here and say, you're our guy. I mean, that is, we go back to Ryan Day's first act as a head coach at Ohio State to bring in Justin Fields.
Yeah.
It is a pretty remarkable run that Will Howard just led Ohio State on.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know how you feel. To me, there were a dozen huge plays for Ohio State tonight. And it's one that didn't end up in the end zone or lead to a turnover on defense or a stop or, 3rd and 11, when it looks like Ohio State is a little bit discombobulated about how they want to run out the clock. Maybe didn't even do it as efficiently as they needed to. Took a snap with 15 seconds left on the play clock when the clock was running. And then it was like, okay, there's one-on-one coverage on Jeremiah Smith on the perimeter. In all year, how many times in September and October was the question asked, can Ohio State trust Will Howard to throw the deep ball when he needs to? And he answered that a number of times before tonight.
Especially in the last month, yeah.
Especially in the last month. But the nail in the coffin, the national championship clincher, was Will Howard uncorking a perfect deep ball down that right sideline behind us to Jeremiah Smith for a huge gain. And that was it.
Yeah.
They were the national champs.
I mean, we're not going to nitpick, but I would have run that play on second down.
Okay.
But whatever. Just kidding. It's symbolic. And I think what's most impressive about that, Austin, is that Ohio State's previous possession ended on a 3rd and 2 when Will Howard missed Jeremiah Smith, who was open in the flat, when he could have. That was probably his worst ball of the night. Then the Buckeyes get the ball back after Notre Dame doinks a 27-yard field goal off the upright. And Will Howard is just being a battering ram at that point. The whole idea is, well, maybe we're not even going to pass the ball anymore.
Yeah.
And he has to drop back on 3rd and 11. Notre Dame at that point I think they had to be assuming pass. I don't think they were assuming one-on-one deep shot against Christian Gray. No offense, who's a great kid. I got to cover him in recruiting. That is not the matchup you should have had in that moment. It wasn't going to be a win for Notre Dame. But for Will to step up and deliver that throw in that moment, and then to be smart enough on the next couple plays to get down.
Oh, yeah.
You keep the ball, keep the clock moving, not take anything on a big hit. And we talked to Jaden Felding on the notebook, and if Will did that on purpose to go to the right hash at the 19-yard line on the play that like that, because Jaden Felding said that's a kick they practice
every day.
19, right hash 19. And Ryan Day went up to him and said, this is what you do every single day. And like, if that was planned, or if that was, I don't know if it was Ryan Day telling Will Howard to get down at that spot, or if it was just Will, I don't really care. But what for Jaden Felding, in a season that when we look back on it, we'll be like, redemption. Jaden Felding, man, stepped up and just hit 2 absolute perfect kicks in a game that couldn't have been more important. And for Ohio State fans in this building, after 2 years ago with the freaking kick that freaking down there, what a beautiful way for that story. We talked about it at the start of the playoff, the redemption road. You have to beat the SEC. The first game after Michigan, you get to go against Oregon again. Then you have to go to Texas and play in the Cotton Bowl where last season ended. And then you have to come to Atlanta and play in this building where the 2022 season ended in such a heartbreaking fashion. Like, what an incredible story for Ohio State.
There are 100 of them. Ryan Day is at the top of that list. Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau. I felt like Jaden Felding was going to be one of the overlooked ones. Those kicks were incredibly important they didn't seem that at the time. The one that made it 31-7 in the third quarter was like, whoa, that was a nice bomb. It was like a little icing on the cake because this game is getting out of control and threatening to be a true blowout. And Notre Dame deserves credit. You made this point. We made this point all along. Marcus Freeman is a good coach. Al Golden's a good coach. They have talented players. They're not as talented, maybe physically, athletically, 1 through 85 as Ohio State.
But they weren't going to quit.
They weren't going to quit, and they executed at a high level. And Riley Leonard made some tremendous throws. And Ohio State made it a little bit more difficult on themselves with some untimely penalties, and Notre Dame capitalized on those. They deserve credit for doing that. But they had a great plan to start, Notre Dame did. They marched down the field. They had the ball for 10 minutes. It was like, maybe that is we know that's their path. That's their game plan to try and
the path.
Control the football. But Ohio State immediately answered on offense. They were so efficient in the first half. 3 drives in a row, 3 touchdowns. You have the defense rallying from that drive. They force 3 consecutive 3-and-outs. They stop an obvious fake punt situation where everyone in the building, I think, knew what Marcus Freeman was going to try and do there. They stop that. That pass goes incomplete. You think, well, that's going to be it there. They did not stop fighting, and Ohio State didn't either. So they answered the challenge, and I think when we talk about all these redemption stories that you mentioned, there was so much adversity for this team. So much. from the first day of training camp on.
Yep.
And, I think it's in a lot of ways fitting that they had to fight back from an early deficit and then, continue to fight in the fourth quarter when it got tough.
But a lot of that adversity is because they set the expectation for this season of being national championship or bust. And then they didn't deliver in the two biggest games of the season in the regular season. And again, I know that there's people probably nationally who are like, Ohio State, if they weren't named Ohio State, wouldn't have even made the playoff. Well, guess what? Everyone knew this was the most talented team in the country.
If anyone says that,
well, there are people
they need
who
to
say
get
it.
their head.
There are people
that's
who say
absolutely ludicrous in a 12-team playoff.
It is, but I hope it resets the expectations of what this is going to be like in the future. The best teams are the ones that are going to be helped by the expanded playoff. So, we can understand that and appreciate it for what it is because, Ohio State had the whole street undisputed lane right in 2014. This is as undisputed as it gets.
It's funny because in 14, there were a couple teams in the Big 12 that were very much disputing the fact that Ohio State should have been there. And it was like, well, then Ohio State won, 2 games and everyone just sort of forgot about it and moved on. It's like, well, this is how the system was supposed to be designed. Maybe, it should have been 8 or 12 all along. It doesn't matter. I think that this one, you just can't argue it. Ohio State not only deserved to be here, but anyone who was going to win those 4 games was going to have the most deserved claim and coronation of anyone who's ever won a college football playoff national championship. That's my opinion. No one has ever had to do this, to go to the lengths of 16 games and play them, the length of the season, the difficulty of the season. And this wasn't a matter either for Ohio State specifically where they were on the good half of the draw or got to play one of the lesser conference champions in a smoother path.
Yeah, they didn't get Arizona State and Boise State.
They missed that.
SMU.
Their quarterfinal game was across the country in the Rose Bowl against Oregon, and they beat the brakes off of them. They beat the team that was the regular season champion. They beat 2 SEC teams. And as you said, they did it in some of the most difficult places that they could have possibly been drawn into. They had in my opinion, the hardest path. And you can say, well, Tennessee's would have been the same. Fine. But Ohio State beat Tennessee, and they did it convincingly. And they won every game by double digits. And they covered in the national championship game, which I think is pretty significant.
Yeah, and I hope people just take a moment to really revel in this win for Ohio State and what it means for the program, what it means for the coaches, not just Ryan Day. Again, we talked about Justin Fry last week and that man deserves a ton of credit for what this offensive line did in the last month and a half. Larry Johnson, who has been much maligned this season and the last couple seasons because he has not had as productive a group as you would expect from a guy who is recruiting 5-star players like Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau and Tyleik Williams, etc. For those guys, for Brian Hartline, who took a demotion essentially this year by no fault of his own, because Ryan Day needed to offload play calling. For Brian Hartline, he could have been anywhere else.
Yeah.
And he stuck it out and he won a national championship, something that he didn't do as a player despite playing in 2 of them.
Yeah.
There's a story for every guy on this team and every coach, and it really is something that we're going to talk a lot about over the next week or two, and then the nature of the beast is we start to look ahead and say, well, what's next?
Yeah.
How does Ohio State come back? and I had a lot of the players on the team tonight as they were celebrating walk off field saying, well, it's our team now.
Yeah.
It's our team now. And we're going to get into that. But tonight, for everyone who's still up watching this, I hope you had a safe night. If you're not home, don't drive anywhere at this point. It's freezing in Ohio, but it's also freezing in Atlanta.
It seems like it might be colder in Atlanta.
We are really excited to get home to Ohio. We're going to have a Roosters show later this week. I don't know if it's been officially decided Thursday. I think that's probably what we're aiming.
We'll figure something out.
But we're going to have.
Don't you have to celebrate for 24
hours?
Yeah,
we would like to have the public out with us. Maybe we can get Jack Sawyer, who's a big Roosters guy, to join us for one of those shows.
Let's just stay as a ball. I did a terrible job with confetti tonight.
Just celebrate this one. We will get into the nitpicking of what happens with Jim Knowles. We don't know. None of that matters tonight. It's a championship It's a national championship.
Jim Knowles has 2 years left. I'm fascinated by this notion. All right, we'll talk. He's under contract for 2 more years. He's the defensive coordinator at Ohio State. Oklahoma can't pay him that amount of money.
We're not going to talk about it tonight.
Don't try and ruin the
What we're
mood
going
on
to talk
Snap
about
Judgments.
tonight is championships in Ohio State 34, Notre Dame 23. Ohio State is your national champion, just like everyone knew they were going to be
Natty
a
or
month ago.
bust. Natty or bust.
Natty or bust.
Guess
And
what?
guess what?
It didn't
Natty.
bust.
Oh,
They didn't bust. Boy,
Natty.
we've talked a lot about this team. Normally, we're just more in sync on that.
I
Brains are fried. This
am-
playoff is so long.
am. It's 1:15 in the morning as we finish this up.
Is
We're
it?
going to try to get back to a.
Oh boy.
I still have to edit this and get it online before we get on a bus. Hopefully, there's still a bus. Last time we were in Atlanta, we had to walk back to the hotel because the bus was like, "Nah, you guys are screwed." We're like, "Oh no!" But if that happens tonight, I may die of hypothermia.
Yeah.
So I hope that doesn't happen. So we're going to wrap this up. But Ohio State won the national championship. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I can tell you're ready to get this one over with. We'll have a lot more coverage about the national championship. I absolutely guarantee
At
it.
like 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, Ryan Day's press conference with Will Howard and Cody Simon, right?
Yep, and there will be another Snap Judgments after that, I think.
Maybe.
Because we need to process some of this information.
We'll have the notebook online in the place of the podcast daily at 5 a.m. So don't expect the normal podcast daily. We'll have the notebook there.
Yeah.
And then we'll have the presser with Ryan Day. And then we'll see about Snap Judgments after that before we get on the road to Ohio.
We'll figure it out. It was a madhouse down here on the field as Ohio State celebrated a national championship. So our brains are fried, and maybe yours are too, because this was a stressful season and it was one unlike any other for the Ohio State Buckeyes, really for any national champion that has ever played the sport. But that trophy is going back to Columbus, Ohio, and we're going to be back there too very soon. And we can't wait to see you all and talk to you about it once we get back to Roosters, once we get back into the routine of the offseason, because it is now here. 2024 college football season. That is a wrap. Ohio State is your winner. It's Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. Congratulations to all the Ohio State players, coaches, and fans on a natty. We'll talk to you later.